And if you're just joining us, welcome to WION's non-stop coverage of the 2020 U.S. presidential battle. Here's a quick recap of what's happened over the last few hours. A lot to summarize. As of where things stand, the presidential race is too close to call, with Georgia and Nevada's electoral votes on the line. A Georgia judge has now dismissed the Trump campaign's lawsuit over absentee ballots in the state. Meanwhile, Trump's lead in Georgia continues to shrink. Donald Trump's lead in Georgia continues to dwindle down as the final batches of votes, as posted by the state election officials. And Joe Biden, meanwhile, has secured a lead of nearly 12,000 votes in battleground Nevada. President Trump continues to tweet alleging widespread fraud in the presidential race, at the same time with no evidence. In another tweet, Donald Trump said, and I'm quoting, "All of the recent Biden-claimed states will be legally challenged by us for voter fraud and state election fraud." On the other hand, a Pennsylvania court ruled that the Trump campaign observers could stand closer to watch ballot processing in Philadelphia. No court has found wrongdoing in the ballot counting process in Philadelphia. A look now at the latest numbers. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden has won the battleground states of Michigan and Wisconsin. Hours after that power-packed election night, the latest numbers are gradually beginning to give us a clearer picture. At this point, Joe Biden has 264 electoral votes, while President Trump has 214 electoral votes. The candidate getting 270 electoral votes wins the presidency. In Georgia, with 98% of the counting done and only 50,000 remaining, Donald Trump is leading with 49.6% votes as per the latest, while Joe Biden is trailing behind with 49.2% votes. That's how neck and neck this contest is. In Nevada, Joe Biden has extended his lead to nearly 12,000 votes. Biden is currently leading at 49.5%, followed closely behind by Donald Trump at 48.5% votes. Michigan and Wisconsin are pivotal Midwestern states that have given Joe Biden a critical boost in the race to the White House. In the 2016 presidential battle, Donald Trump won both the states. Pennsylvania is among a handful of battleground states where Trump and Biden are in that narrow contest. More than 1 million votes are yet to be counted. Trump held a 675,000 lead, prematurely declared victory in the state. His lead narrowed and the race is now a tight one. 10 electoral votes for Wisconsin, 48.9% for Trump at the moment, 49.6% for Joe Biden. So the fight for the White House is getting more complicated with each passing hour. The Trump campaign has challenged vote counts in key battleground states, including Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Trump's personal lawyer and his son, Eric Trump, have accused Democrats of sending in fraudulent ballots. In Arizona, Joe Biden is leading with 50.5% votes. Trump 48.1% votes. In North Carolina, the picture is different. Trump is leading with 50.1% votes. Joe Biden, on the other hand, the figure is 48.7% votes at the point. But the figures are changing, and we're going to be keeping a close eye on the latest numbers coming in. Joining us this minute is Raymond E. Vickery, Jr., former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, Trade Development, joining us from Washington, D.C. Thanks very much for speaking with us here on WION World is One. I'm going to start by putting you in a bit of a tight spot. How long before we have a clearer picture over who is taking over the White House?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back again. It's always a pleasure to be with WION. In 2000, we didn't have a decision for 21 days after the presidential election, and that was decided by the Supreme Court, wrongly in my view, but that was what happened. So we're in for a long period. There's no question that the Trump White House, President Trump, is doing what he always does in a tight spot, and that is try to weaponize the rule of law. You know, in the U.S. and in India, we pride ourselves on the rule of law. Unfortunately, as a lawyer, I know, and many others know, that the law can be misused, can be weaponized. You can threaten to sue people, you can drain resources from them, harass, and so forth. And that is exactly what the Trump campaign, President Trump, is trying to do. Now, if the count comes in as expected in Nevada and Arizona, and I would caution your viewers about Arizona. In Arizona, there's still many votes to be counted, and the lead that Biden has is narrowing. So that's far from a done deal, just as Pennsylvania is. I'm afraid that Georgia and North Carolina are going to go to Trump, but it's not over even in terms of counting. So what we're talking about in terms of the counting before you really have something which is certifiable is, in my view, a matter of a week or so. And then you are going to get into the litigation. And, you know, the Electoral College does not meet until December the 14th. And those votes have to be cast in the Electoral College before there really is a president, no matter how many projections or how many counts or anything. And there are questions, unfortunately, about the electoral colleges. Some states have binding law that they have to vote the way in the electoral college, the way the vote went in the state. Others do not. Now, it's very unlikely that you would have enough people to change, but we're so close. That's a possibility. The other possibility, of course, is that after December 14th, because of the way in which the votes have been cast in the Electoral College, that you have a tie. And if you have a tie, it goes to the House of Representatives. At this point, each of the House delegations votes by state, and the Republicans would have an advantage there. So this is very, very disconcerting to all of us who love democracy and want to see it flourish. I would say the good news is, as you have pointed out in your entering segment, that thus far there have been no fraud, faults found. This is an extremely clean and well-conducted election. And so far, the courts that have said that have confirmed that. So that's good for democracy.
But the Trump campaign does not seem to be agreeing with that. They've already initiated legal action in several states seeking recount, alleging there's been fraud. Donald Trump tweeting just a short while back asking for the votes to stop being counted, to not be counted any further. A judge in the state of Georgia has now also thrown out a petition by the Trump campaign. Where do you see this legal tussle headed?
Well, I see it headed toward a period of uncertainty. As I indicated earlier, this is what you call weaponization of the courts. And if you have enough money and time, you can go into many courts and you can say anything you want, true, untrue. Now, the Georgia court, I think, is going to be what happens all the way along, that these cases will be dismissed as without having foundation. But I'm too old and too experienced to always say that the courts do what they're supposed to do. And the reason that Donald Trump was so interested in getting Amy Coney Barrett confirmed is so he'd have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. And what he plans is to get this to the Supreme Court, to rely on the Republican-appointed justices to give him the election. That's been the approach the whole time. It worked in 2000. In fact, the Constitution of the United States is crystal clear, in my view, that the states have control over their presidential elections. But in 2000, by 5-4, on a strictly partisan basis, the courts went the other way. Even the most conservative judges who always defer to state rights said, well, no, we're going to end this. Federal, we're stepping in and it's over. Now, that That is not something which is a pipe dream or something that people are aware. It has happened once. It can happen again. Do I think it will happen? I hope and pray it will not. I think that there are good, strong, ethical people on the court, and that won't happen. But it is a period of grave uncertainty, which is a sad, sad thing for the oldest democracy in the world, and working with India as the largest democracy, and being able to build a coalition which is against autocracy and in favor of the common man, equality, justice, all of those principles which we hold so dear.
And people in the world's oldest democracy having to take to the streets, urging that the vote counting should not stop and each and every ballot must be counted, one of the main principles of any democracy in the world. 71 million votes so far for Joe Biden, the most in American history. What, in your assessment, has worked in the favor of Joe Biden, and to what extent has Trump's handling of the COVID-19 crisis helped him?
Well, I don't think the overall what
Right, we'll just reconnect that line with Raymond Vickery. A bit of an audio glitch there, but we're standing at a juncture where, like we discussed, the world's oldest democracy, the people have been taking to the streets, asking for each and every ballot to be counted. That, of course, is one of the most basic principles of our democracy. But America, at this point, is surrounded by that grave uncertainty, an electoral battle, which is now, by all indications from the Trump camp, turning into a legal tussle. The Trump campaign, in fact, has already initiated legal action to stop the count in several states, claiming fraud and irregularities. Donald Trump, just a short while back, tweeting, asking for the vote count to be stopped. The campaign has called for a recount in at least 4 battleground states. Back to you, Raymond Vickery. Please go ahead with the point you were making.
Well, what I'm saying is that this is what Donald Trump has done throughout his whole career, and that is to try to weaponize the rule of law and the courts by threatening to sue, by bringing baseless lawsuits. He did this time and time again as a real estate developer in New York, and it is his stock in trade, and it is what he has planned all along if this got close. This is not out of character or something which is unusual. And he will try to foment domestic unrest in this country. One of his stock in trades when you had the Black Lives Matter protest was to send out police to really foment discord. That happened in Washington, D.C. It happened in Portland. And he will do it again if he can. The man has no principle at which he will stop. Anybody who says don't count the votes is striking at the very root of democracy. And that's what's going on in this country. And I don't want to be melodramatic about it, because the institutions of our great democracy are very strong. And they have
Absolutely. And the other issue that has been dominating the electoral discourse in the run-up to Election Day also has been the issue of climate change, and something that has again divided the United States. After 3 years of officially announcing the same, the U.S. has now officially withdrawn from the Paris Climate Agreement. United Nations regulations refused to let Donald Trump withdraw from the accord, remember, back in 2017. The Paris deal was drafted in 2015 to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change and came into force in November 2016. It aims to keep the global temperature rise well below 2 degrees Celsius and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase even further to 1.5 degrees Celsius. 55 countries part of this accord are expected to take stock every 5 years to assess collective progress. The future of America's climate change policy hangs on and hangs in the balance. President Trump and Democratic nominee Joe Biden would undoubtedly lead the country in opposite directions. Biden has called climate change the existential threat to humanity. He took to Twitter saying that the Biden administration will immediately rejoin the Paris Accord if elected. But even if he wins the White House, his plan to invest trillions of dollars towards making America a greener country will face a deeply divided Congress. While the electoral map appeared to tilt in Biden's favor, it seems that the GOP will retain control of the Senate. And that would make it difficult for the Biden administration to carry out the changes as promised. The comprehensive climate bill to be sailing through the upper chamber will be a huge concern. If the Senate remains Republicans' majority, any legislation would need the consent of the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. The Republican Senate leader from the coal mining state of Kentucky has a long history of opposing any federal action when it comes to climate change. Nonetheless, the uncertain election outcome does not change the scientific reality of rising temperatures and the threat posed by climate change. The burning of fossil fuels and other human activities continuing to warm our planet at an alarming rate. The U.S. could miss its own Paris Accord commitment to lower carbon emissions 26% to 28% below 2005 levels by 2025. According to a report, the country is on track to cut its emissions between 20 to 27%, depending on how quickly the economy recovers from the pandemic. But it would need to cut emissions by 43% over the next decade to be on track to reach net zero emissions by the year 2050. And that is a call that the European Union, Japan, South Korea and other nations have set in a push to slow down our planet's warming. Going back across to Raymond Vickery, who's been getting us his perspectives. The issue of climate change, Raymond Vickery, again has divided the United States. We've seen the American president first calling climate change a hoax, then doing a complete turnaround regarding the same. The fact of the matter is, running parallel to the presidential battle is the battle over the Senate control, which holds the key to key legislations, crucial battles, and overall policy framework for the country.
Well, that's exactly right. One of the great tragedies of the Trump administration has been the withdrawal of the United States from the Paris climate change. And it is very important that the United States and India be able to work together as great democracies, as large democracies, to be able to fight this common scourge. Now, as you point out, Joe Biden has said that one of his first act will be to rejoin. And as you correctly point out, then there would need to be implementing legislation for us to take the actions that we have said that we want to be able to take when we first joined. So the Senate is important, but it is absolutely vital importance if you want to have a U.S.-India relations which is broader than immediate security needs and encompasses this greatest existential crisis to the people of India and the United States. It's absolutely vital that Joe Biden be elected. Then cooperation on this very important matter would go again. And, you know, it is amazing, the United States, that we don't have more support on this alone. California is